daughter sends photo. During sleepover, mom zooms in and calls 911 in shock. Before we dive into the story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Emma Carter stared at her phone, her thumb hovering over the send button. The text to her 8-year-old daughter Sophie was simple. "Having fun, sweetie?" Yet, she hesitated, not wanting to seem overprotective. This was Sophie's first sleepover after all. The invitation from Lily, her co-worker Claire's daughter, had come unexpectedly last week, leaving Emma with mixed feelings. "She'll be fine," Emma whispered to herself. Finally pressing send, the empty house echoed around her. No giggles, no cartoons playing in the background, no small footsteps pattering across the wooden floors. She glanced at Sophie's favorite stuffed bear, sitting abandoned on the couch's worn fabric, a testament to years of love and comfort. As a single mother and full-time nurse at Riverside Hospital, Emma rarely had evenings to herself. She should be enjoying this freedom perhaps, taking a long bath or watching something other than animated princesses. Instead, she found herself pacing, checking her phone every few minutes. When her phone finally chimed, Emma nearly dropped it in her haste to check the message. Sophie had sent a selfie, her chestnut curls slightly disheveled, her smile wide and genuine. She posed with Lily and 2 other girls Emma didn't recognize, all in colorful pajamas, clearly in the middle of what appeared to be a pillow fort in Claire's living room. "Having the best time ever, Mom," read the caption. Relief washed over Emma. See? All that worrying for nothing. Her daughter was fine, happy, even. She was about to set her phone down when something in the background of the photo caught her eye. Emma zoomed in, squinting at the shadowy corner behind the girls. There, partially hidden by what looked like a doorframe, stood a figure unmistakably a man watching the children. Claire had never mentioned a husband or boyfriend. In fact, Emma distinctly remembered her saying she lived alone with Lily since her divorce 3 years ago. The man's face was mostly in shadow, but Emma could make out his expression, not smiling, just watching. An inexplicable chill ran down her spine. "Who is that?" she whispered, her finger trembling as she zoomed in further, the image becoming pixelated but the unease crystal clear. Emma's hand shook as she dialed Claire's number. No answer. She tried again straight to voicemail. The silence in her apartment, once peaceful, now felt oppressive. "Think," she whispered to herself. Asterisk, don't overreact. Memories of her ex-husband Daniel's voice echoed in her mind. "You're always imagining the worst, Em. It's exhausting." Their marriage had dissolved 3 years ago, partly due to her anxiety, what he'd called suffocating. Maybe he'd been right. She stared at the photo again, pinching the screen to zoom further. The pixelated image revealed little more, a tall man with broad shoulders standing half hidden in shadow. Something about his posture suggested he didn't want to be seen. Emma paced her living room, the hardwood cool beneath her bare feet. The walls of her small apartment seemed to close in. Photos of Sophie lined the bookshelf, Sophie at the beach, Sophie on her first day of school, Sophie blowing out birthday candles. In each one, the same chestnut curls and infectious smile that Emma had worked so hard to protect. After the divorce, she'd become even more vigilant. Perhaps too vigilant, as her sister often suggested. "You can't bubble wrap her forever, Emma," Jessica had said just last week. "Kids need some freedom to grow." Emma sent a text to Claire. "Hey, just checking in. Who's the man in your house? I noticed him in Sophie's photo." She waited 5 minutes. 10. No response. She tried calling the local non-emergency police line, but hung up before completing the call. What would she say? "There's a man in my co-worker's house and I don't know who he is." They'd laugh her off the phone. Her mind raced through possibilities. Claire's brother visiting? A new boyfriend she hadn't mentioned? A neighbor who'd stopped by? Or something worse? Emma pulled up Claire's employee file in the hospital directory on her phone. Emergency contact. Patricia Reynolds, mother. Nothing about a male relative or partner. "This is ridiculous," she muttered even as she grabbed her car keys. The digital clock on her microwave read 10:42 p.m. Sophie should be sleeping soon, if not already. Claire's house was just 15 minutes away. As she reached for her jacket, Emma's phone pinged with a message from Claire. "Everything's fine? The girls are having a blast. Don't worry. No mention of the man. No explanation. That settled it. Emma headed for the door. The 15-minute drive to Claire's house stretched into what felt like hours. Emma's knuckles turned white as she gripped the steering wheel, her mind racing with possibilities. The suburban streets were nearly empty, occasional streetlights casting long shadows across the road. When she turned onto Elm Street, Emma slowed her car, scanning house numbers. Claire's home was a modest two-story, with green shutters, now illuminated only by a porch light, and the flickering blue glow of what must be a television through the living room window. Emma parked across the street, heart pounding. What now? Storm up to the door demanding answers? Peek through windows like some creep? She picked up her phone instead, trying Claire once more. To her surprise, Claire answered, her voice hushed and tense. Emma? It's nearly 11. What's wrong? Who's the man in your house? Emma asked directly. A pause. Too long. There's no man here, Claire replied, her tone carefully measured. I saw him in Sophie's photo, Claire, standing behind the girls. Who is he? Another pause. Then, you must be mistaken. It's just me and the girls. Emma felt cold dread pool in her stomach. I'm outside your house right now. Yo, what? Claire hissed. Before Emma could respond, movement caught her eye. A side door to Claire's house opened, and a figure slipped out tall. Male, moving quickly toward a car parked in the shadows of a large oak tree. Someone's leaving your house right now, Emma said, her voice rising. Claire, what's going on? The call disconnected. Acting on instinct, Emma grabbed her phone and took several photos of the man as he hurried to his car. She couldn't see his face clearly, but she captured his build, clothing, and most importantly, his license plate as he pulled away. Her fingers trembled as she dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? I need to report a suspicious person, Emma said, her voice surprisingly steady. My daughter is at a sleepover at 123 Elm Street, and there was an unidentified man in the house who just fled when I called the homeowner. I'm concerned for the children's safety. As she spoke, Claire's front door opened. Claire stood there, arms crossed, glaring across the street at Emma's car. Ma'am, are you in immediate danger? The dispatcher asked. No, but I don't know if the children are safe. Please send someone quickly. The red and blue lights of the police cruiser illuminated the quiet street, drawing curtains aside as neighbors peered out at the commotion. Officer Hayes, a stocky man with a salt and pepper mustache, stood between Emma and Claire on the front lawn. So let me understand this, he said, flipping through his notepad. Miss Carter, you saw a man in a photo your daughter sent, became concerned, and drove over here. Miss Bennett, you claim there was no man in your home tonight. Claire nodded emphatically. That's right, it was just me and the girls. Emma is, well, she tends to be overprotective. Emma felt her cheeks burn. I know what I saw. Look at the photo. She thrust her phone toward the officer, who studied it carefully. There does appear to be someone in the background, he admitted. Claire leaned in, feigning surprise. Oh, that must be a shadow from the lamp. The lighting in that room plays tricks. Officer Hayes squinted at the image. Could be. Hard to tell for sure. Then, explain the man I saw leaving through your side door, Emma challenged, her voice rising. Claire laughed, the sound brittle in the night air. Probably my neighbor Ryan, retrieving a tool he borrowed. Really, Emma? This is embarrassing. Inside the house, the girls had gathered at the window, their small faces pressed against the glass. Sophie waved timidly at her mother, and Emma felt a stab of doubt. Had she overreacted? Created a scene that would follow Sophie to school on Monday? I'd like to check on my daughter, Emma said firmly. Officer Hayes nodded. That seems reasonable. Inside, the living room was a chaos of sleeping bags, popcorn bowls, and scattered pillows. A movie played quietly on the television. Everything looked perfectly normal. Sophie ran to her mother, wrapping thin arms around her waist. "Mom, why are the police here? Is everything okay?" Emma stroked her daughter's hair. "Yes, sweetheart. I just got worried." "Who else is in the house besides Miss Claire?" Sophie looked confused. "No one. Just us girls." Claire shot Emma a triumphant look. After a thorough check of the house revealed nothing suspicious, Officer Hayes pulled Emma aside. "Miss Carter, I understand your concern, but there doesn't appear to be any danger here. What about the license plate I photographed? We'll run it, but without clear evidence of a crime." Emma nodded, defeat settling heavy on her shoulders. "Sophie, get your things. We're going home." "But Mom, it's not even midnight. We were going to make s'mores in the microwave." The disappointment in her daughter's voice was crushing. 3 days after the sleepover incident, Emma sat in her car outside Sophie's elementary school, ignoring the dirty looks from other parents, as she occupied the same prime spot in the pickup line for the third day straight. Previously, Sophie had taken the bus home, letting herself in with her key and calling Emma at work. Not anymore. The school bell rang, and children poured from the building. Sophie emerged, her shoulders hunched, lacking her usual bounce. The sleepover fiasco had followed her to school, just as Emma had feared. Claire's daughter, Lily, had apparently told everyone that Sophie's crazy mom called the police for no reason. When Sophie climbed into the back seat, Emma forced a smile. "How was school today, sweetie?" Sophie shrugged, buckling her seatbelt. "Fine." As they pulled away from the curb, Emma noticed a blue sedan parked across from the school. The driver sat low in his seat, face obscured. Something about the vehicle's profile triggered her memory. "Sophie," she said casually, "did you see anyone unusual around school today?" Sophie fiddled with her backpack strap. "Like who?" "I don't know. Someone watching? A stranger?" "Mom, you're being weird again." Emma bit her lip, focusing on the road. The sedan didn't follow them, but her unease persisted. At home, she helped Sophie with homework, made dinner, and tried to maintain normalcy while her mind raced. After Sophie was asleep, Emma pulled up the photo she'd taken outside Claire's house. The license plate was partially visible, JKL 832 something. She'd given the information to Officer Hayes but hadn't heard back. Impulsively, she called the station. "Miss Carter." Officer Hayes sounded tired. "We ran the partial plate. It belongs to a Nathan Reed. No outstanding warrants, no red flags." "Who is he? How is he connected to Claire?" "Ma'am, we can't investigate someone just for being in a neighborhood. There's no evidence of a crime." After hanging up, Emma searched online for Nathan Reed. She found Latella LinkedIn profile for an accountant, a few social media accounts set to private. The next morning, Emma dropped Sophie at school early for her reading group. As she pulled away, she noticed the blue sedan again, this time parked closer to the entrance. Making a sudden decision, she parked across the street and waited. 20 minutes later, a man emerged from the cartel, broad-shouldered with light brown hair. He walked to the school fence, watching the playground where children played before classes. Where Sophie played. Emma's blood ran cold as she recognized him from the photo. Without thinking, she got out of her car and marched across the street. "Excuse me," she called out. "Nathan Reed?" The man turned, startled. His eyes narrowed when he saw her. "Do I know you?" he asked, voice unsettlingly calm. "I'm Emma Carter, Sophie's mother. Why are you watching my daughter?" Nathan Reed's smile didn't reach his eyes as he looked down at Emma. "Sophie's mother, of course. Beautiful child. She has your eyes. But her hair, that must come from her father." Emma's skin crawled at the familiarity in his voice. "You didn't answer my question. Why are you watching my daughter?" "I'm not watching anyone," Nathan replied, his posture relaxed despite the confrontation. "My niece goes to school here. Lily Bennett, you know her mother, Claire." "Niece? Emma's mind raced. Claire had never mentioned a brother, half-brother, technically. Different fathers. His eyes never left Emma's face, studying her reaction. Claire didn't mention me? Strange. We're quite close. Cars continued to pull up for drop-off, parents watching the exchange with curious glances. Emma suddenly felt exposed, vulnerable. "Stay away from my daughter," she said, her voice low but firm. Nathan's expression darkened momentarily before sliding back into that unsettling smile. "I don't know what you think I've done, Miss Carter, but I assure you, your concern is misplaced." "Then why were you at Claire's house during the sleepover? Why did you sneak out when I arrived?" "Is that what this is about?" he chuckled. "I was dropping off some computer equipment for Claire. Left through the side door because I was parked there. Nothing sinister." His explanation sounded reasonable, but something in his tone rang false. Emma glanced toward the school, relieved to see Sophie was no longer on the playground. "I don't believe you," she said simply. Nathan stepped closer, invading her space. Though his voice remained pleasant, his eyes had turned cold. "You should be careful about making accusations, Miss Carter. People might think you're unstable. I understand you've had difficulties since your divorce. Anxiety issues, maybe even some medication dependence." Emma stepped back, shocked. "How do you?" "Claire mentioned it. She's worried about you. Actually worried about you, and worried about how your behavior might affect Sophie." The threat was veiled but unmistakable. Emma felt her hands trembling and shoved them into her pockets. "I've contacted the police about you," she said, bluffing slightly. "They're running a background check as we speak." Something flashed in Nathan's eyes, annoyance or perhaps concern, before he shrugged. "They won't find anything worth mentioning. Stay away from Sophie," Emma repeated, turning to leave. "She looks like someone I used to know," Nathan called after her. "Someone very special to me. Same golden hair, same trusting smile." Emma froze mid-step, then forced herself to keep walking, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing her fear. For the next 2 weeks, Emma's life revolved around a single mission: keeping Sophie safe. She rearranged her nursing shifts to align with school hours, installed security cameras at home, and escorted Sophie everywhere. The carefree days of bus rides and after-school independence were gone, replaced by vigilant supervision that left them both exhausted. Nathan seemed to have vanished. No blue sedan outside the school, no sightings in their neighborhood. The police had dismissed her concerns after a cursory investigation revealed nothing suspicious in Nathan's background. Even Officer Hayes had stopped returning her calls. "Mom, can I please go to Mia's birthday party on Saturday?" Sophie asked one evening, pushing spaghetti around her plate. "Everyone from class is going." Emma hesitated. The party was at the community pool, open public, with plenty of parents around. Maybe it was time to loosen the reins a little. "Okay," she finally said, relief washing over Sophie's face. "But I'll be dropping you off and picking you up myself." Saturday arrived with perfect weather. Sophie bounced with excitement, clutching her gift-wrapped present. At the pool, children splashed and shrieked while parents chatted in groups. Emma spotted Claire across the deck, who pointedly turned away. "I'll be back at 3 o'clock sharp," Emma told Sophie. "Stay with the group. Don't go anywhere alone." Sophie rolled her eyes. "I know, Mom. I'm not a baby." Emma watched her daughter join her friends before reluctantly leaving. For the first time in weeks, she had 3 hours to herself. She decided to use the time productively, driving to Claire's neighborhood to look for Nathan's car. No sign of the blue sedan. At 2:45, Emma returned to the pool, eager to see Sophie's sunburned, chlorine-scented happiness. But when she arrived, chaos greeted her. Parents were gathered in frantic clusters, while a lifeguard used a megaphone. "What's happening?" Emma asked a nearby mother. "They're doing a pool check. A child is missing." Emma's heart stopped. "Which child?" The woman shrugged, but Emma was already pushing through the crowd, scanning desperately for chestnut curls and a polka-dot swimsuit. "Sophie," she called, panic rising. "Sophie." Mia's mother rushed over. "Emma, we can't find Sophie. She was playing Marco Polo with the girls, then said she was going to the bathroom. That was 20 minutes ago." The next 30 minutes passed in a blur of terror. Police were called. The pool was searched. Nearby buildings checked. Just as Emma was about to collapse from fear, a pool attendant approached. "Miss Carter, we found your daughter. She's in the manager's office." Sophie sat on a plastic chair, wrapped in a towel, tears streaking her cheeks. In her hand was a small, colorful bracelet Emma had never seen before. "Sophie!" Emma rushed to embrace her. "What happened? Where did you go?" Sophie's voice was small. "A nice man said he had a surprise for me. A present from you." The hospital corridor felt endless as Emma paced outside the examination room. The pediatric sexual assault nurse examiner had been with Sophie for over 40 minutes, though they'd assured Emma it was just a precautionary evaluation. The braceleta woven friendship-style band with small plastic beads spelling "Special" sat in a police evidence bag. When Detective Martinez finally emerged, her expression was carefully neutral. "Miss Carter, Sophie appears physically unharmed. No signs of assault. She's getting dressed now." Emma collapsed into a nearby chair, relief flooding her system. "Thank God. Did she tell you what happened?" "She says a man approached her near the restrooms, told her you'd sent him with a surprise, and led her to the parking lot. When he tried to get her into his car, she remembered your stranger danger talks and refused. That's when she ran back to the pool area and hid in the storage room." "It was Nathan," Emma said with certainty. "Did she describe him?" Detective Martinez consulted her notes. "Tall man, light brown hair, blue shirt. She mentioned he knew her name and said she was special, hence the bracelet." Emma's hand shook as she reached for her phone. "This man, this is him." The detective studied the image. "We'll investigate. In the meantime, I strongly suggest you both speak with a trauma counselor." Later that night, after Sophie finally fell asleep in Emma's bed, the dam broke. Alone in her bathroom, Emma slid to the floor, silent, sobs racking her body. The terror of what could have happened paralyzed her. This wasn't paranoia or overprotection. Nathan had tried to take her daughter. A familiar impulse surfaced, the desire to numb the panic. Before Sophie's birth, Emma had struggled with anxiety, medication dependency. After a particularly stressful shift, she'd take just one extra pill, then two, until it became a daily crutch. Daniel had discovered her half-conscious one night, leading to rehab and eventually their divorce. Now 3 years sober, Emma found herself opening the medicine cabinet, staring at the prescription bottle tucked in the back. Emergency anxiety medication she'd never thrown away. "Just one," she whispered, hand trembling. "Just to get through tonight." The pill was bitter on her tongue. Relief came quickly, followed by shame that burned hotter than her fear. She'd sacrificed her sobriety, one accomplishment she'd clung to through everything. Tomorrow would bring police reports, school notifications, restraining order applications, a mountain of bureaucracy that might still fail to protect Sophie. Emma knew she should rest, but instead found herself at her laptop, searching obsessively for information on Nathan Reed. A social media profile appeared, not Nathan's, but Claire's. A photo from 2 years ago showed her with a man whose face was partially obscured. The caption read, "Family reunion after too long. So happy to have Nate back in our lives." Emma's eyes narrowed. How long had Nathan been back in Claire's life? And why had she lied about their relationship? Emma woke with a start, her laptop still open beside her on the couch. Empty coffee cups littered the coffee table alongside printouts of everything she'd found on Nathan Reed. It wasn't much, a LinkedIn profile showing sporadic employment history, a few mentions in local newspaper archives, and several addresses across 3 states. Nothing incriminating. Nothing that explained his interest in Sophie. The morning sunlight streaming through the blinds made her head pound, a combination of anxiety, medication, hangover, and too little sleep. Sophie was still asleep in Emma's bed, mercifully untroubled by nightmares. Emma shuffled to the kitchen, her mind replaying fragments of a dream, something about Claire, about a connection she was missing. As coffee brewed, she scrolled through her phone contacts until she found Patricia Reynolds, Claire's mother, listed as her emergency contact at the hospital. Before she could overthink it, Emma dialed. "Hello?" An elderly voice answered. "Mrs. Reynolds, this is Emma Carter. I work with your daughter Claire at Riverside." "Oh yes," the nurse. "Is everything all right? Is Claire okay?" "She's fine," Emma assured her. "I'm actually calling about Nathan Reed, Claire's brother." A long pause followed. "Half-brother, technically. Different fathers." Patricia finally corrected, her tone suddenly guarded. "Why are you asking about Nathan?" "I'm trying to understand some concerning behavior. Claire mentioned you two aren't close." Patricia scoffed. "That's putting it mildly. I haven't spoken to Claire in nearly 3 years, not since she helped Nathan after his release." "Release?" Emma prompted, her pulse quickening. "From Pine Grove, the psychiatric facility," Patricia clarified. "Claire never told you? Nathan spent 5 years there after what happened with that little girl in our old neighborhood." Emma's blood ran cold. "What little girl?" "Nothing was ever proven," Patricia said quickly. "But the accusations. A child from Nathan's tutoring program claimed he'd taken her to his special place, given her special gifts, pretty bracelets, just like he used to make for Claire when they were children. Bracelets, like the ones Sophie had been given. The family moved away afterward," Patricia continued. "The case was dismissed for lack of evidence. But I knew, a mother knows. That's why I cut ties when Claire stayed loyal to him." "Mrs. Reynolds, this is important. Did this girl have blonde hair?" Another pause. "Yes, she did. Looked a bit like Claire when she was small. Nathan always had a fixation on his sister. Their father left when Claire was born, and Nathan became intensely protective. Too protective." Emma's mind raced. Sophie resembled Claire as a child. That's what Nathan had meant when he said Sophie reminded him of someone special. "One more question," Emma said, her voice strained. "Did Nathan ever live in Chicago?" Once Sophie was safely at school with a police officer stationed nearby, Emma took a personal day and drove to the county courthouse. The records department was housed in a dimly lit basement with outdated computers and the musty smell of old paper. "Criminal records and restraining orders," she told the clerk, a middle-aged woman with reading glasses perched on her nose. "For Nathan Reed." 20 minutes later, Emma sat at a metal desk scanning through documents that painted a disturbing picture. Nathan had a sealed juvenile record, plus 2 adult complaints that never went to trial. Both involved blonde girls aged 7-9. Both cases dismissed due to insufficient evidence. The clinical language couldn't disguise the pattern. More surprising was what she found about Claire. She had filed for a restraining order against her ex-husband 5 years ago, claiming harassment and stalking after their divorce. The husband, Jason Bennett, had allegedly threatened to expose Astra's family secrets if Claire didn't give him full custody of Lily. Emma's phone buzzed with a text from Detective Martinez. "Need to speak with you. New information. Call as soon as possible." In the privacy of her car, Emma called back. "Miss Carter, we've been investigating Nathan Reed," Martinez began. "His car was spotted near your apartment complex yesterday." Emma's grip tightened on the phone. "He knows where we live?" "It appears so. There's more. We discovered Nathan isn't actually Claire Bennett's biological brother. Their parents married when Claire was 3 and Nathan was 12. After high school, Nathan legally changed his last name from Tanner to Reedy's mother's maiden name." "Why would he do that?" Emma asked. "We're not sure, but it effectively disconnected him from his previous identity. Here's where it gets concerning. Nathan worked as an elementary school tutor in Chicago from 2015 to 2016. The timeline matched. Sophie was in preschool in Chicago then before the divorce. Daniel had hired a tutor for her reading difficulties. Detective, my ex-husband Daniel Carter hired a tutor for Sophie when she was 4 in Chicago. Silence on the line. Then, Miss Carter, I need you to ask your ex-husband if the tutor was Nathan Tanner, not Redund. I need you to do it immediately. Emma hadn't spoken to Daniel in months. Their communication was limited to terse emails about Sophie's visitation schedule. He had remarried and moved to Seattle with his new wife, seeing Sophie only during school breaks. Daniel answered on the 4th ring. Emma, is Sophie okay? She's fine, Daniel. I need to ask you something important. When we lived in Chicago, who was Sophie's reading tutor? What? That was years ago. He sounded confused. Some guy I don't remember his name? Why? Please, Daniel. This is crucial. Was it Nathan Tanner? The extended pause told her everything. How did you know that? Daniel finally asked. Yes, Nate Tanner came highly recommended by other parents. He was great with Sophie. What's this about? Emma's hands trembled as pieces clicked into place. Daniel, Nathan Tanner, is now Nathan Reed. He tried to abduct Sophie yesterday. What? That's impossible. He moved away. After you fired him, Emma interrupted. Why did you fire him, Daniel? Another long pause. He got too attached. Started bringing Sophie presents, calling her special. It felt inappropriate. When I confronted him, he became unhinged. Said Sophie was like a daughter to him. That's when I let him go. The final piece fell into place. Nathan wasn't just a predator who found a convenient target in Sophie. He was obsessed with her specifically, had been for years waiting for an opportunity to reclaim his special girl. Daniel, I need to go. Call the Seattle police immediately. Nathan might come after you too. Emma sat in her car outside the police station, hands still shaking as she ended the call with Daniel. Inside her purse, the prescription bottle of anxiety medication seemed to call to her, promising quick relief from the crushing fear. She gripped the steering wheel instead, forcing herself to breathe deeply. Detective Martinez had listened intently to Emma's discoveries, her professional demeanor slipping only once when Emma revealed Nathan's connection to Sophie from Chicago. Now, the detective was coordinating with Chicago PD to review those old case files and arranging for increased patrols around Emma's apartment complex. We're building a case, Martinez had assured her. But without clear evidence of an attempted abduction at the pool, Sophie never actually entered his cairn. Witnesses are scarce. We still don't have enough to arrest him. The system's limitations felt like a cruel joke. They needed to catch Nathan doing something illegal, which meant using Sophie as bait, something Emma would never allow. As she started her car, her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? She answered cautiously. Emma Carter. The voice sent ice through her veins. Nathan, you've been quite busy today. His tone was conversational. Claire has been very helpful. She feels terrible about the misunderstanding at the pool. Sophie wandered into the parking lot alone. You see, I was simply returning her to safety. Stay away from my daughter, Emma said, her voice stronger than she felt. I've been watching her for years, Nathan continued, as if she hadn't spoken. Ever since that fool Daniel fired me. Did he tell you how Sophie cried when I left? How she made him promise I could come back? Emma pulled away from the curb, heading toward Sophie's school. The police know everything, Nathan. They're looking for you right now. His laugh was soft. They won't find me. Not until I'm ready. Not until Sophie and I are together the way we should be. Never going to happen. It already is happening. His voice hardened. Check your email. Emma's blood ran cold. At the next red light, she quickly opened her email. A new message contained a single photo attachment. With trembling fingers, she tapped to open it. The image showed Sophie on the playground at school today, in the red sweater Emma had helped her put on this morning. "As you can see, your police protection is inadequate," Nathan said. "I could take her any time, but I'm not a monster, Emma. I want to do this properly." "What do you want?" she whispered, fear constricting her throat. "Meet me tomorrow night. Come alone, and I'll explain everything. If you involve the police, Sophie will disappear. You'll never see her again." The line went dead. Emma's mind raced. Going alone was dangerous, possibly suicidal. Not going was unthinkable. Telling Martinez seemed like the obvious choice, but Nathan's threat haunted her. What if police involvement pushed him over the edge? She needed help, but not from law enforcement. Someone who understood predators. Someone with experience, but no obligation to follow police protocols. Mark Sullivan. The name surfaced from a conversation months ago. A retired detective who now worked as a private investigator, specializing in child predator cases. Sophie's therapist had mentioned him during their first session after the divorce, when Emma had worried about Sophie's safety during Daniel's visitations. It was a desperate plan, but it was the only one she had. The rain had started around noon, a steady downpour that continued well into the evening. Emma sat in her car outside Mark Sullivan's modest bungalow, watching raindrops chase each other down her windshield. The retired detective had listened to her story with the attentiveness of someone who'd heard similar tales too many times before. "Nathan Reed fits the profile of an obsessive predator," Mark had explained, his weathered face grim. "He's fixated on your daughter specifically because she represents something he lost: connection, control, admiration. He's been planning this for years, which makes him particularly dangerous." Their plan was simple but risky. Emma would meet Nathan as requested at the deserted playground near the community center. Mark would position himself nearby, armed and ready to intervene. A recording device hidden in Emma's coat would capture any incriminating statements. Not a perfect plan, Mark had admitted, but safer than going alone and cleaner than involving the police prematurely. Now, as 9 p.m. approached, Emma drove toward the meeting place, Mark following at a distance in his weathered pickup truck. The playground was eerily empty, swings swaying gently in the rain. Emma parked and pulled her hood up, the recording device safely tucked inside her jacket. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The gazebo. She spotted it across the field, a wooden structure, barely visible through the rain. With each step across the sodden grass, Emma felt her heart hammering against her ribs. The medication bottle remained untouched in her purse. She needed clarity tonight, not artificial calm. As she approached the gazebo, a figure emerged from the shadows. Nathan stood with his hands in his pockets, looking oddly ordinary in a dark raincoat. "You came alone. Good." His voice was soft, almost gentle. "What do you want with my daughter?" Emma demanded, remaining at the edge of the shelter. "I want what's best for her." Nathan's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Claire has been so helpful telling me about Sophie's activities, her schedule. She was quite eager to arrange that sleepover." "Claire," Emma repeated. "She's been helping you all along." "Family helps family," he said simply. "After I was released from Pine Grove, she was the only one who stood by me. She understood that the allegations were misunderstandings." "Why, Sophie?" Emma's voice shook. "Of all the children you could have fixated on." Nathan's expression darkened. "I don't fixate. I connect. Sophie and I had a special bond in Chicago. She was 4 years old," Emma snapped. "She wasn't special. She was vulnerable, just like the girl in your old neighborhood, just like all your victims." Something shifted in Nathan's demeanor. His eyes hardened. "I've arranged everything," he continued, as if she hadn't spoken. "A new start, new identities. I have a cabin in Vermont, peaceful, remote. Sophie will have the childhood Claire had before our father left." A chill ran down Emma's spine as the pieces clicked into place. "Claire isn't your sister, is she? She was your first victim." Nathan's smile vanished. "You understand nothing." A twig snapped in the darkness behind them. Nathan's head whipped around, his hand darting inside his coat. In that instant, Emma saw the glint of metal. A gun! "You brought someone," he snarled, advancing toward her. Everything happened at once. Mark's voice shouted from the darkness. Nathan lunged forward, grabbing Emma's arm. She twisted away, slipping on the wet wood. As she fell, Nathan's gun discharged with a deafening crack. The gunshot echoed across the empty park, swallowed quickly by the rain. Emma felt a searing pain in her shoulder as she hit the wooden floor of the gazebo. Warm blood spread through her jacket, the recording device crackling under the impact. "You stupid woman," Nathan snarled, standing over her with the gun still pointed at her chest. "I offered you a chance to do this civilly." Mark's voice bellowed from somewhere in the darkness. "Police, drop your weapon!" Nathan's head jerked toward the sound, momentarily distracted. Emma seized the opportunity, kicking upward with all her strength. Her foot connected with Nathan's wrist, sending the gun skittering across the gazebo floor. Nathan howled in pain and rage, diving for the weapon. Emma scrambled to her feet, ignoring the white-hot pain in her shoulder. Blood made her hands slippery as she lunged for the gun, reaching it a split second before Nathan. Their hands collided on the cold metal. Nathan was stronger, his fingers wrapping around both the gun and Emma's wrist. She could see the manic determination in his eyes as he tried to wrench it from her grasp and turn it toward her. "Sophie is mine," he hissed, his face inches from hers. "She was always meant to be mine." "She will never be yours," Emma replied through clenched teeth, fighting against his grip with fading strength. A sudden movement in the corner of her vision, Mark sprinting toward them, his own weapon drawn. Nathan saw him too, his grip momentarily loosening in surprise. That split second was all Emma needed. She twisted her body violently, breaking free from Nathan's grasp. The gun remained in his hand, but she was out of his immediate reach. She staggered backward, pressing her hand against her bleeding shoulder. "It's over, Reed," Mark called, approaching cautiously, his gun trained on Nathan. "Drop the weapon and step away." Nathan's laugh was hollow, desperate. "You think this changes anything? I found Sophie once. I can find her again." "Not from prison," Emma spat. Something changed in Nathan's expression. A calculation. A decision. His eyes darted from Mark to Emma, then to the dark park beyond. "I won't go back," he whispered almost to himself. Before either Emma or Mark could react, Nathan bolted from the gazebo, disappearing into the rain-drenched darkness. "Stay here," Mark shouted to Emma, taking off in pursuit. Emma slumped against the gazebo railing, pain radiating from her shoulder. She fumbled for her phone with blood-slicked fingers, dialing 911. "Officer down," she gasped, recalling the phrase from countless television shows. "Springfield Park, gunshot wound, suspect armed and fleeing." Time seemed to slow and stretch. Through the curtain of rain, blue lights eventually appeared in the distance, accompanied by the wail of sirens. Emma's vision began to blur, black spots dancing at the edges as shock set in. Before the darkness claimed her, she heard 3 distinct gunshots punctuate the night, followed by a terrible silence. Her last conscious thought was of Sophie, her laugh, her golden curls, her trusting eyes. Would she ever see her daughter again? The hospital room was bathed in pale morning light. When Emma opened her eyes, the steady beep of monitors and the sharp scent of antiseptic brought her back to reality. Her shoulder was heavily bandaged, and an IV line ran from her arm to a bag of clear fluid hanging beside the bed. "Welcome back," a familiar voice said. Detective Martinez sat in a chair by the window, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she'd been there for hours. "Sophie," Emma croaked, her throat dry. "She's fine. Still with your sister in Bridgeport," Martinez assured her. "Your former partner, Mr. Sullivan, called us immediately after you lost consciousness. He made sure she was safe before pursuing Reed." Emma's memories returned in fragments. The gazebo, the struggle, the gunshots in the dark. Marcusy, alive but injured. Reed shot him in the leg before officers arrived. Martinez leaned forward. Nathan Reed is dead, Miss Carter. He refused to surrender and engaged in a firefight with responding officers. Relief and something like grief washed over Emma. Not grief for Nathan, but for the closure his death denied. The answers that died with him. And Claire? In custody, facing multiple charges. Accessory to attempted kidnapping, obstruction of justice, filing false police reports. Martinez's expression hardened. The relationship between them was complicated. She's cooperating now, telling us everything. Emma nodded, wincing at the pain the movement caused. How did you know where to find us? We didn't initially. Officer Hayes remembered your concerns about Reed and connected it to reports of gunfire in the park. When we arrived, Sullivan was already wounded, trying to stem your blood loss. A knock at the door interrupted them. A nurse entered, followed by a woman in a tailored suit, who introduced herself as Laura Simmons from Child Protective Services. Miss Carter, I understand this is difficult timing, but I need to discuss your daughter's situation, Simmons began. Given your injury and recent events, we need to establish a temporary care plan for Sophie. Panic flared in Emma's chest. My sister Jessica has her. She can stay there until I'm released. Simmons shook her head. Your sister's home isn't registered for emergency placement. We'll need to place Sophie with a certified foster family until... No, Emma interrupted, struggling to sit up despite the pain. Sophie's been through enough trauma. Separating her from family now would be devastating. There's also the matter of your judgment. Simmons continued, her tone clinical. Taking vigilante action rather than working with proper authorities put yourself and others at risk. This raises questions about decision-making where your daughter is concerned. Detective Martinez stood. Miss Simmons, if I may, Emma Carter acted out of desperation when the system failed to protect her child. The evidence against Reed wasn't considered sufficient for arrest despite clear danger signs. As they argued, Emma noticed Daniel standing in the doorway, looking travel-worn and worried. Daniel, she whispered, you're here. He stepped into the room. I took the first flight out when Detective Martinez called. Sophie needs us both right now. He turned to Simmons. I'm Sophie's father. I have joint custody. Until Emma recovers, Sophie will be with me. For the first time since the nightmare began, Emma felt the tension in her chest ease slightly. Despite their difficult history, Daniel was stepping up when Sophie needed him most. Recovery would be long not just for her shoulder, but for all of them. The system that should have protected them had failed at nearly every turn, but somehow they had survived. 3 months after the events at Springfield Park, Emma stood in her living room watching Sophie arrange stuffed animals on her newly decorated bed. The physical therapy for Emma's shoulder was progressing well, though occasional pain still reminded her of that rainy night. The emotional healing was proving more challenging for both of them. Perfect, Sophie declared, stepping back to admire her handiwork. Her chestnut curls had grown longer, and a newfound seriousness occasionally shadowed her eyes. Reminder of innocence interrupted, but her smile, when it appeared, remained as bright as ever. Dr. Ellis, Sophie's trauma therapist, had been instrumental in helping her process what happened. Children are remarkably resilient, she told Emma during their last session. Sophie understands now that Nathan was a sick man who tried to hurt her, not someone special who cared about her. That distinction is crucial for her healing. The investigation into Nathan's past had revealed a pattern spanning decades. Claire, now serving a 5-year sentence, had indeed been his first victim of a relationship that evolved from abuse into toxic codependency. Interviews with his former patients had uncovered multiple unreported incidents, and 2 families had come forward with new allegations. A knock at the door interrupted Emma's thoughts. Daniel stood on the porch, right on time for his weekend visitation. Their co-parenting relationship had transformed in the aftermath of the crisis, not quite friendship, but a respectful partnership centered on Sophie's well-being. "How's she doing today?" he asked quietly, as they watched Sophie gather her overnight bag. "Better," Emma replied. "No nightmares this week." Daniel nodded, relief evident in his eyes. "And you? The support group helping?" Emma touched her silver chip, tucked safely in her pocket. After relapsing with anxiety medication during a crisis, she'd committed to recovery with renewed determination. 60 days clean, new one day at a time. "It is," she answered honestly. "Turns out I'm not the only parent who's faced impossible choices to protect their child." As Sophie skipped toward them, overnight bag in hand, Emma felt a wave of fierce love. Despite everything, her daughter was healing, adapting, moving forward. They both were. Later that evening, alone in the quiet apartment, Emma sat at her computer. The screen displayed her newly created website, recognizing predatory behavior. What had begun as therapy documenting her experience, writing about warning signs she'd missed had evolved into a resource for other parents. Her phone buzzed with a text from Detective Martinez. "Panel confirmed for next week. Your story needs to be heard." Emma's fingers traced the scar on her shoulder as she composed her reply. The system had failed them at nearly every turn, dismissed concerns, insufficient evidence standards, bureaucratic obstacles. She couldn't change the system overnight, but she could add her voice to those demanding better protection for children. Tomorrow, Sophie would return from Daniel's, likely full of stories about their weekend adventures. They would make pancakes together, perhaps venture to the park if Sophie felt ready. Small steps toward normalcy, toward healing. The shadows would never completely disappear for either of them, but they were learning to live with them, to move forward despite them. In the photograph on her desk taken just last week, Sophie stood grinning between Emma and Daniel, her arms wrapped around their waists, her eyes clear, her smile genuine. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. A family rebuilt from trauma's ashes, stronger for having faced the darkness together.